Hello everyone and welcome back. So in today's video we are going to continue our series on React hooks and we'll be diving into useState. So by the end of this video you should be able to know how to import useState, how to initialize useState, how to restate. So when I say state I mean the data of the component, how to update the data. We are going to look at some of the data types that the state can hold, okay? And then we're also going to look at how we can update objects and then arrays in our state. So for this and more, let's dive into it. Alright, so as I explained in our previous video, useState basically helps us to keep track of our function component state. So in basic terms, it helps us to keep track of our components data, okay? And the first thing you're going to do to implement this is to import our useState. So I'll just come to the top here and then type import, okay? And I'm going to bring brackets from React. So I made mention that we can get our React hooks from React, okay? And then inside here, we just type useState straight away, okay? You could see in other codes, this is how they do it. They just import the whole React, okay? And then when it comes to initialization, they just call React and then useState from it, okay? So useState this way, okay? But we are going to stick to the first one, which is the structuring, okay? So this is the basic way of importing our useState. Now let's move on to how we can initialize this useState. So I'm going to type const and then I'll bring my square bracket, okay? And then equal to use state right away, okay? So now inside here we are supposed to pass in our variable. So the variable we want to store our value inside, so in our case color, okay? And the next one will be a function to update the value of this variable, okay? So here I'm just going to say state color, okay? And then inside here it takes in a default variable, okay? So by default, let's say red will be the color, okay? So this is how we initialize it, okay? And what we've basically done, or we are basically implementing here, is that we are using useState, okay, to create a variable called color, and then we assigned red to it, okay? And we also assigned a function that could be used to update the value of this color. So that is basically what we've done so far, and this is how to initialize useState. Now let's move on to how to read the data of this color, in this case red, okay? So I'll come here and I'm just going to create an h1 element. I'm going to say my favorite color is, and then I'll bring my brackets color. Great. So now let's save this. Let's go to application, okay? But before we go to application, I've already set up my React application, okay? And I have a video on that, so I'm going to leave the link down below. If you don't know how to set up your application, you can click on that link and then it's going to help you to do that, okay? Once you are done, I'm sure we are good to go now. Now when you go to application, as you can see here, my favorite color is red, okay? So we've been able to initialize and we'll be able to read from our color data. That is it, okay? If we change this to blue and then we save it, now when we go back, as you can see here, my favorite color is blue. So useState is helping us to set our variable and then also read from it, okay? That is basically what we've done so far. Now let's look at a way of changing the variable, the value of the variable color, okay? So I'm just going to come here. I'm going to use a button, okay? And I'm going to say change to let's say red, okay? And then inside here I'm going to use an onClick, okay? So onClick, basically what it basically does is once you click on the element that is assigned to, it's going to call a function, okay? And here I'm going to use an anonymous function here, and I'll call my set color, and then I'm going to pass in a value. Okay, so once you call this function, it gives you the opportunity to pass in a value that you want to replace the current value of this color with. So I want to say red. Okay, now let's go back to our application, and as you can see, my favorite color is blue. Now when I click on change to red, changes it to red, right? So we've been able to change it, and it's all thanks to useState. Okay, so it provides us with the state, and then provides us with a function to update the variable. Okay, all right, so if you can see, I've updated the code, right? So I've set up, or I've initialized multiple useState here, and then I'm reading their data right here. Okay, so when you come to the application, as you can see, my info right? So let's go back to the code. So what I want us to talk about right now is the data types of the useState, or the data types of our states. Okay, clearly we can see we have strings, we have number, we have boolean here, right here. Okay, so it tells you that React state, or React useState, can store strings, it can store numbers, it can also store booleans. Okay, so if you could see here, we are doing conditional rendering here. So if favorite is equal to true, then means this car is my favorite. If favorite is equal to false, then means this car is not my favorite. So clearly, if you come here, you can see this car is not my favorite, right? I can go back and then add a button to toggle it. Okay, so you can see button, and then please, before I continue, I want you to pause the video and then try to implement the update yourself. If you're able to do that, then kudos, please let me know in the comment section. But if you're not able to do, don't worry, I'm going to show you how to implement that in a minute. All right, so we have to get our on click. Okay, and then we kind of create a function right here. Okay, and you're going to set our favorite. Okay, so set favorite to true. Okay, so that is it, and then toggle, right? Great. So here, if you come back here, we have this button here which says toggle. So currently we are having this car is not my favorite, but now when I click on it, see, now it says this car is my favorite. When you click on it, when you click on it again, nothing happens. This is because we are still passing in true. So the best way to do that is to pass in the variable. Okay, so favorite in this case, so you're just going to take it and negate it whenever this function is being called. So when you go again, this car is my favorite. When you click on it, we get this car is not my favorite. When you click on it again, we get this car is my favorite, right? So basically, useState can take in strings, it can take in numbers, it can take in booleans. And then let me tell you something. You know that we can actually change this and make it simpler. And this is how we are going to implement that. Okay, so first let me comment this one out. Okay, so when you look at this, we can see all this information is about our car, the brand, the model, the year, and the color. Okay, so we can actually create just one useState. Okay, so I'm going to say car, and then here I'm going to give it set car. So set car, right? Then we have our useState right here. Okay, and inside our useState, by default, we are going to pass in a couple of things here. Okay, so we are going to pass in the brand, and then the brand we chose earlier on is Ford, so let's stick by that. And then the next one is the model, and then the model, trust me, I don't know this model. Of course, I'm not a fan of cars, right? But I will definitely have a car soon. Yeah. So year, and then the year, come on, it's too old. Let's choose 2024, right? And then the color, and then let's say red. Great. So now let's go back to our implementation. Of course, we have some warnings here. Let's take care of that. So I'm going to say car dot brand. Great. I'm going to say color, car dot color. I'm going to say, well, model. What's happening? Model. Model. Okay. And then we have another car dot year. Great. So in just a second, let's go back to application. And as you can see, everything works perfect, right? So toggle that, and then we get our red here. Okay. So basically, we've been able to kind of convert this multiple use states into just a single use state, right? And we know that clearly this data here, the data type of this data or the structure of data is objects. Okay, so it tells you that use state can hold objects. Okay, so states can hold objects. States can also hold arrays. So, which is probably the last one we are going to talk about. So, let me say names. Set names. Okay, and then here we are going to use useState, and then inside it we are going to pass in array. So we can pass in, let's say 1 2 3, any number, right? And then we are going to come here. So below the button we are going to do some mapping. So I'm going to say names. Did I say name or names? It's supposed to be names, right? Okay, names. Come on. So names dot map. Okay, and then we say name. Let me use name. And then here we use p tag. Oops. Then here we say you can give it a key, right? Which for now I'm just going to say index. I'm not teaching actual React here, so you just, I'm not going to explain much, right? And then we'll pass in the name here. Great. So now let's save it and go back. So as you can see, we have 1 2 3 right here. Okay, so actually the name of the variable was supposed to be numbers, right? Yeah, but I was hoping to put in names here, but for time's sake I'm just going to skip that, right? Yeah, so what the point I'm trying to make here is useState also takes in, or state also takes in arrays. Okay, it could be arrays of numbers, arrays of strings, arrays of the objects and all of that, right? Now let's look at how we can actually update some information in our objects. So let's say, for instance, we want to change the color of our car. Okay, we just come here and then we need to create a function. Okay, so update color. Okay, and trust me, this one is quite tricky, so I need you to focus much. Okay, bear in mind, to change it we have to use the function here, which is the set car. Okay, so we are going to say set car. Okay, and then we are going to pass in a couple of things. We need to get the previous data, so I'm going to say prev, just to stand for previous data. Okay, or previous state. And then down here I'm going to bring our return function. Okay, so you don't worry, I will explain it to you in a second. And then we do the structuring here. So all the data that we don't change, we spread them right here. Okay, which is, we take all the previous data, we spread them here. Okay, and then the one we want to change is color, so I'm just going to say color, and then we set it to the new value. So we can pass in, I don't want to hard code here, so I'm going to pass in value here, and I'm going to say value. Great. So what this basically does is it calls this set function of this set car function. Okay, of course that is the only way we can use to update the value, which is the name's value. Okay, so when it calls it, it has previous data, which is by default these ones. Okay, So what we basically do is we kind of spread that data back again to the set color. Okay, I mean to the color, and then we change only the attribute or the feature, which is the color feature. That is basically what this function is doing. So I'm now going to call this function here. Let me bring it down here. So I'm going to create another button. I'm going to say change color to red. Okay, let me see. I think, oh, previously it was red, so let's say blue. And then again back to our on click, not on click. Great. And then we're going to call this person blue here. Okay, great. So now let's go back to our application, and as you can see, it is a red Mustang. Yeah, if I pronounce it well, yeah, it's a red Mustang. And then here, when you come to this button, when you click on it, now it is a blue Mustang, right? That is basically what it does. So we've been able to change the value of the color. Yeah, so I think this video is getting long, and we've been able to cover all the things, which is importing our useState, initializing our useState, right, reading from our useState right here, and also updating our useState. We also look at some of the data types or values that the state can hold, which is strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, objects, and many more, right? So we've been able to also look at how we can update object data, right? I think this is enough, right? And I hope you really enjoyed. If you did, kindly click on the subscribe button, like this video, share this video with friends, and please, if you have any question, any doubts, kindly let me know in the comment section, and I will try to reply you or clarify it as quick as possible. And thanks for having you here. See you in the next video.